So James, we are 7 years in this journey at Social Tree, and we are, successful entrepreneurs. We have created a business that is thriving, is profitable to the shock of our family and friends. And in this video, I just wanted to share some advice about how other entrepreneurs can enter the space, can set up businesses. And, if we can do it, it is definitely attainable by everybody else. It's not, not rocket science, but there are some tricks and some tips that people can use to create their own businesses. And we want to share in this series some advice about how we've been able to do it. So James, what do you think are some of the key things to think about when you're starting a business? If someone's at home, they're thinking, man, I want to do something for myself. I want to get out the rat race. I don't have much money available. What advice would you give to someone out there who's taking the first steps into entrepreneurships?
Yeah, that's a good question, Max. I think actually the first thing is a controversial bit of advice, but I think not having a plan B is actually a really good thing for going to business. When we started a business, 7 years ago, you quit your job, I quit my job, you both were unemployed, you both didn't really have any other option other than to make our thing work, really. It was like I don't want to say do or die, but it was actually quite, this must work. And it was to the point, we went to the point where things did get quite dark, to be quite honest with you, in terms of the income situation initially. We were sort of teetering very close to getting medical experiments at the beginning. I was doing part-time call center work. You were in Gatwick, weren't you?
I was in Gatwick selling Fitbits, and then trying to, if you weren't getting the sales, you were sending, links around for medical experiments to raise some extra funds. But
that's the point. That was how much I think we wanted to do it. It wasn't just like a passing thing of, I think I want to start something. I think you really have to want to do it. It has to be like a real passion for it, and it has to be, I think, pathological in the sense that it's bigger than how much money you want to earn. It's bigger than the business you want to do. I feel like you generally want to have to love the journey of wanting to start a business, to be an entrepreneur. It's a passion, like being a musician or something else. I do think there is an artistic element to it. So I think, to answer your question, I think the first bit of advice is to do some self-diagnosis and really understand, are you willing to go to that place to be an entrepreneur? Are you really willing to go to that place? And things can get dark in the early days. Are you really willing to make those sacrifices? I think that's the first bit of advice I would give someone, is to have some introspective thoughts around their life now and how much of that life they're willing to sacrifice to kind of go on the path of full-time entrepreneurship. Keen to hear what your advice is, Max.
Yeah, my advice for anyone out there looking to start a business, and if they don't have much money available, like me and you, we didn't have any VC funding or anything, so we kind of just started it really from scratch with no investment. And my advice is to first of all look at creating a service-based business. I think service-based businesses are great because you can just offer your time. It's just offering your time. You don't have to stock inventory. You don't have to put loads of capital up front. Like starting a restaurant, you need to have all the equipment and everything. You put a lot on the line. But if you can think about what can you provide, into the market that you're really good at, and just be really focused on that and just try to do one thing really well. And in the early days, we'd often do stuff for free. We'd say, look, we know we're really good at LinkedIn. We'll even do it for free. You pay at the end if you're happy. And that's how we got the first 3 customers. So my advice for anyone starting a business and you don't want to risk a lot of capital, focus on the service that you can provide the market and really focus on doing one thing really well, because it is really competitive out there, and it's all about just being laser focused on one niche. I believe is what people should be thinking about.
I think the free thing is a good point. And I think people should work for free initially. And I think that is idea of, I won't do it for free. I think when you've just started off with no reputation, I think, quick cliff note, if you have no reputation, like when we started, we were just kind of 2 young guys. If you've got a long history of success, and you can, and I think it's also important to distinguish, what does entrepreneurship mean? It's quite a broad term. I think that there's different types of entrepreneurship. So you could be a self-employed sole trader who is essentially a contractor, which is very different to, I think, starting a business and hiring staff. So I think there's a lot of layers of differential between what it means to be an entrepreneur. And I think that your point around doing things for free, I think is absolutely critical if you want to get in the door of somewhere and you don't have that experience or credibility to demonstrate that you can do this job. And the only leverage you have in the beginning is price.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite important to have those distinguishing factors. You know, do you think that is, do you think there are, you know, what's your take on almost the league table entrepreneurship? There is a scale, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at like entrepreneurship, you can actually look at the stats, and our stats, if you're looking at, you know, obviously we're based in the UK. I think there's about 6 million UK businesses, and about 80% of those are self-employed, so have no staff.
Yeah.
And then the kind of remaining percentile are probably made up, you have to fact check me on percentage, but it's something like the remaining 20%. I think 10% are anywhere from like you know, like one member of staff up to 20, and then you've got like, you know, 5 to 10% who are like over like 100 staff. So most businesses, you are going to be, you know, statistically speaking, kind of like in terms of a table of entrepreneurship, you know, you are going to be kind of self-employed, one-man band. And as you kind of move up the tables, then you will start bringing staff into it. At the moment, you know, we're about 10 members of full-time staff. So we've reached the kind of 20% percentile, and we're obviously aiming to grow from there. But I think when people are thinking about entrepreneurship, they have to just understand that it is hard. Like, it's nothing easy about it. It's hard all the time. And people get brought into entrepreneurship through different things. Like, maybe you just had a desire to do it and you just wanted to get into it. Maybe you actually lost your job and it's like you've been forced into entrepreneurship. Maybe just the industry that you're in, it tends to attract more freelancers, and maybe you just end up in a freelance kind of scenario. But if you want to be, you know, a good entrepreneur, you've got to be willing to have a hard life. Like, it's not easy. Like, and some people, there's no shame. Everyone says they want to be an entrepreneur, but really not everyone does want to be an entrepreneur. Not everyone can be an entrepreneur. Sometimes it is better just to have going into an employed job where you have security, where you have safety, because you will just end up working longer hours. It'll be really hard, and it really isn't for everyone. So just be sure of yourself. Like, before you start risking capital and start gambling on stuff, like, is it really for you, or have you been kind of forced into it by anyone? Because if you're having to have someone kind of prod you to get into it, you know, I've had people, you know, who I spoke to said, look, I really want to do entrepreneurship. I just need some help. I need some motivation. If you're even thinking that you need some extra motivation, it's probably not for you, because there is no support. It has to come from within.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think there are, you know, within that struggle, there are different categories, because I think if you're a self-employed contractor, which millions of people are, you have to kind of juggle your lifestyle with what you want. So, you know, for most people, having a lifestyle business is absolutely fine. You know, doing something where you're self-employed, you run your own accounts, you are hired as a contractor, that's entrepreneurship, that's success, because you still have your own business. And in many times when you come out of that initial struggle, then you can have a really, really good life if it's done with your principles. And I think lots of people fall into that when they actually have been an employee for long periods of time. They end up just being contractors in their field. But I think that what people look at when we talk about entrepreneurship, I do think they mean, I think they're talking about companies of staff, companies are limited companies and so forth. And I think that you're completely right. That does require, I think, a sliding scale of difficulty. Like football, for example, you have Premier League players, Championship players, League One, League Two. There's a whole range of professions, and you have to be honest with yourself around where you are in your own life as well. And I think, you know, if you've got kids, if you've got a mortgage, if you've got a family, there's no shame in saying, actually, I have a great life. I have a great company I work for who give me great perks, and this is success for me. I think people are pushed into it thinking, oh, I have to be an entrepreneur. I really don't think you do, because a lot of times you are actually working for less than you'd earn as an employee, and you get less benefits. You get no healthcare, you get no pension as an entrepreneur. You have to do it all on your own. You get no paid holiday either.
Yeah. I think like entrepreneurs also fall into different, like, every entrepreneur is unique and has like a different story. Like some people get into entrepreneurship because they get asked to do stuff, you know, they might have just left a job and then one person asks them to do, you know, this sort of job, then another person asks them, then through referrals, they just grow their own business. And it's just kind of for some people, entrepreneurship is cast upon them and they just grow through like the demand. Whereas for me and James, it kind of set out as we were, you know, there was no demand, but as we set in, you know, we were like, we're going to go out as a LinkedIn agency and you know, no one's heard of us, we have no connections, but we just believe that we have a good service, and we went out more aggressively. So if you're like me and James, where you're trying to start a business and you're like, okay, I don't have any network, I don't have any inbound inquiries, I'm literally starting from day dot, my advice would be, don't be scared to ruffle a few feathers. You know, sales is a contact sport, and don't be afraid to piss people off. Like that's what I've learned. Like, yeah, you know, when you go out there emailing, cold calling, hitting people on LinkedIn, it's a contact sport. And I would not be shy. I've spoken to some entrepreneurs like, oh, you know, I wouldn't go and cold approach people because it will damage my reputation. I've literally had people say that. But if you want to scale and you want to grow, you have to be aggressive, rustle from feathers, and don't be afraid to piss some people off. Is my advice. Some people disagree. Or there's many entrepreneurs out there who do things differently, but I'm more of a very proactive.
I can attest to that. He really does annoy people. He annoys me a lot. So I echo that sentiment entirely.
Yeah. And along the journey, obviously, entrepreneurship changes from, it was obviously me and you, just ourselves in your apartment, just out of Stretton.
Wasn't mine. I was living with Steve.
Oh yeah, your friends.
Who's kindly allowed us to work from his house. So yeah, we had a lot of support barriers. And actually, you know, when we brought team members on, what I've learned is that actually, if you work for a small company, you can actually get a lot of the perks of being an entrepreneur, but without the downside risk. Well, some companies, you know, some startups have to be very careful. But I think that's what I've also learned, that actually you can get a lot of the perks of being an entrepreneur, but not have the risk of being an entrepreneur. You can kind of experience what it's like working in small companies. That's another thing people could maybe do is kind of think about having that experience of being in a small business first to see what it's like before making the
I think
step.
That's a good point. And also, if you are looking to start a business, I would strongly recommend trying to find a co-founder. Like, there obviously are some people out there who are just amazing and can just build businesses by themselves. And there's definitely people out there. But for me personally, I much enjoy running a business with a co-founder because, you know, you can vent your frustrations. And also, you know, with 2 minds or even 3 minds, so many people you've got in the founding team, you can bounce off each other's strengths and weaknesses. And then it becomes a lot more fun, I think, through having a co-founder. So I would really try when you start out to look at if you can do it with a co-founder. And actually, I know a lot of investors do look for co-founders. They also see the value in co-founders.
You have to find the right person as well. So I think that I absolutely agree if you start with the co-founder, but don't just choose some random person who you met at a networking event. I think you have to choose someone who you've suffered with a little bit and you've had trying situations before. So, you know, we did the Run to Rome, which was a very trying couple of months where we didn't have any money or food, and we were running and hobbling for hours a day on our own with no support, pushing a buggy, sleeping outside, sleeping homeless. So like the experience of that was a real test on how we could collaborate professionally and as a team. And I think that if you do start a business as a co-founder, I think absolutely make sure that person is someone you know, or you can kind of at least prove that you've had some kind of difficult stress test. Because starting a business with the wrong person could be a disaster.
I think you need to do some trial projects. We did the Run to Rome project and we did traveling together and we gelled, our energies gelled quite well. So I think, if you're looking to do a co-founder, maybe do like a charity project or do another project and see how you get on with each other before putting money onto the line and stuff. It's almost like entering into a marriage or something, you know. You need to be sure, because once you're like, you do, obviously your finances get intertwined and then the relationships, and you got to be like sure that you can do a project with that person and you gel with that individual. So you should always be doing projects and networking and finding chemistry with a group of one person or group of people to start
I think the
business.
vectors get more difficult when you get beyond like 3.
Yeah.
I think like I would advise people to do, not a project which is nice and fun, a really horrible, hard project.
Yeah.
And really get to know, when you know someone, when you've gone past that norming phase, there's a storming phase where you're pissed off, you're angry at each other, because like any kind of relationship, you have things that annoy you and tidbits. You have to work through that. And I've seen the most successful businesses I've seen have usually had co-founders. But you are right. There are some people who are really raw, who don't need anyone. I'm not, unfortunately, I'm not that guy. So props to the solo entrepreneurs out there who scale a business on their own. But for most mortals, I think having a team could be your spouse, could be your actual husband and wife, I don't know about that personally, but lots of people make that work. But it's up to you.
Yeah. Entrepreneurship can be really fun. Like I think I'm having a great time running this company. And and one of the other kind of bits of advice I would offer people is to read a book called Traction. Traction is a must read for any entrepreneur. I wish I'd read it before I'd started the company. It really helps you lay out like your vision, your values, your goals. Read the book Traction. It is very short, very simple. It is a Bible for anyone who's looking to start a business. And I wish I'd found that 6 years ago.
We, in terms of mistakes, we've made many mistakes. And I think that is important to echo what the lessons learned. I think the biggest lesson that I've learned is not focusing enough on a clear value proposition. And I think that's an honest bit of feedback from our, where we've gone wrong. And I'd say if people are starting a business, please read Traction. But if you don't read Traction, you have to have a clear value proposition, a clear solution. If you try and do too many things, you really, trust me on this, you dilute your message and it will not work. Have to be like laser focused on saying, this is what I do and this is how I can help. And the market rewards specialism. Yeah. And I did not learn that lesson soon enough.
Yeah. Specialism is so important, especially now when, if you're trying to get into like our field, like digital marketing, or if you're trying to get into, most professions, unless you've just luckily found a niche, you're going to come up against some competition. And like, like nature, Darwinism, like the species that find us a real niche and just carve out that niche can do really well. And everyone's got their niche, but you just takes time to keep working at it, to keep failing. And that's some of the lessons I think, we've learned so far. We're still learning ourselves and learning from great entrepreneurs out there who are in there every day.
So, and I think the other bit of advice I'd say who was the most useful ever hire was an FD.
Yeah.
I really cannot stress. Entrepreneurs tend to have a certain personality type. I think you definitely get analytical entrepreneurs, your accountant focused entrepreneurs. But usually entrepreneurs tend to be a bit more on the kind of gung-ho kind of side. Yeah. I mean, how great has Jeremy, who's our FD, he's been such a valuable person in the team. I think if you can afford it, bringing someone in who can manage your finances and help you manage and forecast is so brilliant. He's been a real asset. And I think there are so many talented people out there who are part-time FDs or consultants who can help you on that. Really, really important. And I think something which I think I've learned, which I think we could do more of, is having like a board of trustees, people who've done it before, can give you advice, because people are willing to help you. You just have to ask, essentially.
Yeah. And there are, people are doing this. It has been done before. There are processes and formulas to entrepreneurship. So I'd be keen to hear from anyone out there who's watching this, who also, has started businesses or has created a business within a business. Because entrepreneurship, there's people, working like Microsoft or Google who have created whole new business divisions who are, entrepreneurs who have created like multi-million, multi-billion businesses from within a business. And that, to be honest with you, there's hardly any difference between that and doing your own business.
I mean, that obviously had the capital, but I'm keen to see obviously where we are. Where do you want to go with Social Tree? Because I think that's an important question, because I think if you don't have an idea of, you have to love the process, the path. What I've learned is you can't fixate on this target, because life is more about the journey. So you have to enjoy the process. But I'm wondering what what does the next level or barrier of success look like for you?
Yeah. I'm a big believer in having a growth mindset, and a growth mindset is all about continuous improvement. So for me, it's all about continuously improving our processes, our revenue, attracting better customers.
Yeah.
It's also about having, a kind of an intelligent strategy within the company as well. And we've recently done our vision statement.
Yeah.
And at Social Tree, our vision is to be the leading LinkedIn agency, channel experts. We do this channel right. And I'm looking forward to seeing how we can grow through that and really just drilling down on our core USB. And then it's all about the third pillar of growth mindset, maximum effort, waking up every day, giving it 100%. But 100% doesn't mean working 15-hour days, because like a sports athlete, they don't just make Arsenal, who seem to be doing quite well at the moment, play endless, train 30-hour days. You need your rest days to be high performing. You need to work really hard, but also have rest and to recover, because it's a marathon.
It's not a sprint.
It's not a sprint, unless you're Elon Musk, who is just a machine. But for most people, it's about having, in my opinion, just applying a growth mindset to what you're doing.
I think, to echo that, I think intense focus on a clear set of for us, a clear destination where we're going, and to build that depth of expertise. I think LinkedIn is so surface level. I really think people are just scratching the surface with LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I think there's a whole Mariana Trench worth of depth, of data, of expertise, of creative talent, which has not been unearthed. And I think, why I feel like we're like a drill, and we're going to drill into this massive oil field of LinkedIn. And we're just getting started. Having that clear value proposition is super important. And just delivering that amazing LinkedIn experience for our clients, and working with LinkedIn as well, working closely with them as partners is a really exciting step for us. But ultimately, it's all about the journey. It's about the process. Trust the process, as they say, as an Arsenal fan TV would say, trust the process, and try and have some fun on the way, because, life is short and you want to do something you ultimately enjoy.
Yeah. And on that note, we're looking forward to the future.
Yeah.
Feel free to join us and join our community here at Social Tree. Obviously, we love LinkedIn, but we also love entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, a lot of hard work, and see you next time.